Have you ever wondered why people look so different, even though we all come from the same root? In this video, we explore how human faces, skin color, and fingerprints have changed over time. One of the most common questions is why many East Asian people, like those from China, Japan, or Korea, have eyes that look smaller. This comes from a feature called the epicanthic fold, a small fold of skin that covers the inner corner of the eye. But why does this happen? Long ago, the ancestors of these people lived in very cold, windy areas like Mongolia and parts of northern China. The harsh weather there, along with lots of bright sunlight reflecting off snow, made it harder to see clearly. Over many generations, their bodies adapted. The epicanthic fold helped protect their eyes from strong winds, cold air, and bright light. So, their eyes started to look smaller and more protected. But here's something interesting. It's not just people from East Asia who have this feature. Some groups in other cold regions, like Northern Europe, also developed similar adaptations for the same reason. Now, let's talk about noses. Have you noticed how some people have big noses, while others have small ones? This, too, is tied to the environment. People who lived in cold, dry climates needed smaller noses to warm and humidify the air before it reached their lungs. In contrast, people living in hot, humid regions develop bigger noses because they need more air filtration. In 1870, a man named Francis Galton visited various prisons. He believed that criminals shared certain facial traits, like broad faces or big noses. Galton took photos of different criminals, layering the images to find common features. But what did he discover? Instead of finding distinct criminal traits, he found that when he averaged the faces, they simply looked normal, just like you or me. So, what does this tell us? The average human face is actually quite similar, no matter where you're from. Our differences, like skin color and fingerprints, are what really set us apart. Let's dive into that next. In our series on human evolution, we learned that humans first appeared in Africa. Our ancestors, like Lucy from the Australopithecus species, were the beginning of a long journey that led to modern humans. But here's an interesting question. If we all started in Africa, why do some people have light skin, while others have dark or brown skin? In the beginning, all humans had dark skin because they lived in Africa, near the equator. The intense sunlight there meant their bodies needed protection. That's where melanin comes in. Melanin is a natural pigment in our skin that protects us from harmful UV rays. The more melanin you have, the darker your skin. This was important for our ancestors because it prevented sunburn and even more serious problems like skin cancer. So, dark skin was a huge advantage in places with lots of sunlight. But about 50,000 years ago, something incredible happened. Humans started to leave Africa. They moved to other parts of the world, like Europe, Asia, and beyond. And as they spread out, they faced different climates. In places like Northern Europe, where there's far less sunlight, having dark skin wasn't as helpful anymore. In areas with less sunlight, lighter skin allows more UV rays to enter the skin and produce vitamin D. Over time, people living in these places evolved to have lighter skin so they could stay healthy. The same thing happened to people in Asia, although they generally developed different shades of skin, from light to darker tones, depending on how much sunlight they received. So, skin color is really just an adaptation to the environment. If your ancestors lived in a place with lots of sunlight, like near the equator, you're likely to have darker skin to protect you from the sun. If they lived in places with less sunlight, like Europe or Northern Asia, you're more likely to have lighter skin to help you absorb more sunlight. Sunlight is a powerful force. It can turn a pale person dark or a dark-skinned person light, depending on how much exposure they get. Over thousands of years, these changes became permanent for people living in different parts of the world. Now let's talk about one of the most fascinating and personal features we all have, our fingerprints. Have you ever stopped to wonder why no two people on Earth have the same fingerprints, not even identical twins? It's like nature's way of giving each of us a personal stamp of identity. Here's how it works. Your fingerprints start forming when you're still in your mother's womb, around the 10th week of pregnancy. As your tiny hands press against the amniotic sac, the pressure creates unique ridges and patterns in the skin of your fingers. Even the movements you make inside the womb can affect the final design of your fingerprints. These ridges, loops, and whorls are completely random, which is why no two people have the exact same pattern. What's really amazing is that even if you were cloned, your clone wouldn't have the same fingerprints as you. Identical twins, who share the same DNA, don't have identical fingerprints either. This is because fingerprints are shaped not just by your genes, but by tiny, unpredictable changes in the womb, like the way your skin grows or how you move. But don't let fingerprints fool you into thinking they're just for identification. In reality, they play a much bigger role. Fingerprints help our fingers grip rough or uneven surfaces much better. This special feature isn't unique to humans. It's also found in animals like koalas and chimpanzees, who rely on their fingerprints for gripping tree branches or climbing. What's more, fingerprints also enhance our sense of touch, allowing us to feel and recognize different textures. In the end, even though we may look different on the outside, whether it's our skin color, the shape of our eyes, or the size of our nose, all humans share the same origin. Our differences are really just nature's way of helping us adapt to the environments we've lived in for thousands of years. Whether it's the sunlight that shaped our skin tones, or the climates that influence the size of our facial features, these external changes are just adaptations. Remember, we all come from the same root. Our ancestors started in Africa and spread across the world, evolving in small but unique ways to survive in different climates and conditions. Underneath those differences, however, we're still connected. The same DNA runs through all of us. The color of our skin, the shape of our faces, and even the uniqueness of our fingerprints are all just layers on top of what really makes us human.